This world is awfully big. Girl, this time you're all alone. But it's time you started living. It's time you let someone else do some giving. Love is all around, no need to waste it. You can have it down, why don't you take it? You might just make it after all. You might just make it after all.
Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm Magnusson. I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Braden Rhetts from all the way from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now, you didn't come here tonight from there, did you?
No, indeed. I did not.
No, indeed. When's the last time that you left Minneapolis?
Oh, when's the last time I left, or when was the first time and the last time?
You know what? Wherever you want to start.
I grew up in Minneapolis, and I left at 18 to go to college and live the rest of my life.
Did you live close to the house that Mary Tyler Moore lived
Indeed,
in?
3 doors away.
Really?
So yes, routinely would find tourists in front of the house saying, "Can you please give us directions to the Mary Tyler Moore house?"
Oh, really? People like coming by, just like they do here at Samuel's?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Oh, she was a huge draw to that neighborhood, which is hysterical because people would not realize they were actually in front of the house when they asked for directions.
And did you know the people who lived there?
Yeah, I had a classmate who lived there for a while.
Uh-huh.
So we got to go inside the house, and it does not look like the show.
Really? You mean maybe they shot the interiors in Hollywood?
I hate to break it to you, but real life is not like it is on TV.
Oh, jeez. Was Ted Knight ever there?
No.
Nobody else? What about Rhoda Morgenstern?
Nope.
No, nobody.
Oh, no. You know, it's real cold there. Norm.
Oh, sure. You betcha.
You betcha.
And so how did your people get to be there? Were they Swedes or Norwegians?
No, and I think that might be why it was a good thing I left, because I'm not actually Scandinavian.
Oh.
So, yeah, it was like I was masquerading all those years.
I didn't know that when we invited you on.
I know, I'm sorry. I'll leave now.
Sure.
I'm actually the only one in my family born in Minneapolis. Everyone else is from the East Coast.
Wow.
So they went there for a job that my dad got probably, I think, about 2 years before I was born.
Huh. Was he working at General Mills?
No. Weirdly enough, not in any of the agriculture there.
Uh-huh.
No, he got a job at the University of Minnesota in the psychology department.
Okay.
And so they moved there, and that's why I'm the only Minnesotan in the family.
And you have siblings, presumably?
I don't.
No.
I'm an only child.
So the only Minnesotan in the family because your folks moved there from elsewhere.
Yep.
Where do they move from?
Originally, everyone's from the East Coast. So my mom was from New Jersey. My dad's from D.C. and Virginia.
And your dad was an academic?
Yep. Well, he's a psychologist.
Uh-huh.
So.
But he was there, like, psychologizing the staff?
No,
or
he was teaching in the psychology department and then went on to have a private practice in Minneapolis for many years.
Okay.
So that's it. Like, that's how we landed there.
Huh.
But, I was there for long enough to kind of get the lay of the land and learn all the Midwestern customs.
Oofta. And so you were there 18 years?
Yep.
And you left. You went to college.
I did. I left and I said, I'm not going to go to college anywhere in the middle of the country.
Smart.
You're from the middle, you know.
I am from the middle. I went to college in Dallas, Texas. It was far enough away. It was a whole different world.
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
I went to Boston. I went to Tufts University.
Oh, well, that's nice.
At the time, I don't feel like most people in the Midwest really knew much about. It was kind of flying under the radar.
Uh-huh. And when was that? It says here, I think, on your LinkedIn profile. So you went to Tufts to study psychology? Just make your dad proud?
No, I did not. I knew what I wanted to study, which is part of why I ended up at that university, because they had the two things I wanted to major in. And so I went to study Asian studies and Chinese and theater.
Chinese language,
which I had studied in Minneapolis in high school, which is pretty funny because it's just not what people think of when they think of Minneapolis.
No. Mandarin?
Mandarin.
And what are there's 3 or 4 Mandarin, Cantonese. What are the major?
Well, Mandarin and Cantonese are going to be your two biggest ones, but there's a lot of other dialects. I mean, you're talking about a country of 1.6, probably more now, billion people.
Right.
You've got a lot of dialects.
And so what in the world, I mean, apart from taking it in high school, made you interested in that language?
Well, so this, I think it tells you a lot about my nerd level. That was my version of rebelling in high school, was to take Mandarin. Yeah, that was me
Did
sticking it to my mom.
Did it piss the parents off?
So my mom was a French teacher, and she actually taught French at my high school, and I had taken French all through middle school. And when I got to high school, she would have been my high school teacher. And yeah, that, teenage girl and mom, it's already a situation ripe with conflict. So I said, oh yeah, I'm not going to take French. You know what I'm going to do? I'm taking Mandarin. Yeah.
Wow.
I was such a rebel.
Has that been useful in your life?
It completely changed my life.
Having
That
Mandarin.
one decision of taking Mandarin in ninth grade
one petty
completely changed the course
defiance.
of my life. Yep.
How so?
Number one, it was a lot easier for me than French, which I know sounds crazy.
The character,
it made
at least
sense.
we share an alphabet with French.
Yes, there is that. It is very hard to write. It is very hard to read. That probably should have thought this rebellion through a little bit better. But the spoken language and the grammar just clicked. It made so much sense. If you've ever studied French, you know that the grammar is painful. Chinese grammar is a lot easier. And I had an incredible teacher. She's since retired, but shout out to Wang Laosher in Minneapolis. She demanded that the school have a Chinese program way back in the 80s and said this is the language of 21st century and everyone needs to learn it. And
Wow.
she was a powerhouse and taught us all about the culture, taught us the language. And then I went to China for 2 weeks at the end of high school and said, oh, I'm coming back here in college. This is what I'm going to do.
Okay, 2 weeks at the end of high school. Was that the Capital Normal University?
No, that's what I did, study abroad in college.
Okay. So where'd you go to China after high school for 2 weeks?
We went and toured all over the country. We went as a group of students from the school with a couple of chaperones and did a big 2-week tour. So we went to Beijing, we went to Shanghai, we went to Xi'an. I think we stopped in Hong Kong. I'm trying to remember where else we went on that grand tour. It was like being rock stars. We had a tour bus and we went everywhere. We had T-shirts.
And you're probably taller than... Yeah. So you were freaks.
Yeah.
Wander around, people staring. Mm-hmm. Like, who are these Occidental freaks? So tall and...
Yeah. Who are these freaks who have their own bus?
Right. And so tell me more about how that decision, I love this petty defiance,
petty
changed
defiance,
your life.
Completely changing the course. Well, it made me pick a major in college that was Asian studies, and I needed to go somewhere that had Chinese, that had Asian studies, and that would allow for or offered a study abroad program in China. So already I had determined that narrowed down my choices of where I would go and what I would study. I knew that's what I was going to do. And then I went to college. I studied Asian studies. I went to China and lived there for a semester. I left university and then went to look for a job using that degree and ended up at the Asia Society in New York for, probably about 4 years.
And at the Asia Society, were you called upon to use your Mandarin very often?
Not in New York so much. I mean, there would be occasional phone calls late at night to China, but mostly it was when we would go overseas and plan conferences or do business missions and things like that.
And when you go to China and you're speaking your Mandarin, I assume you had a fairly decent accent, but still sounded like a native English speaker.
Sure.
And were the people friendly and really appreciative of you trying to speak their language, or they?
I think that's almost I don't want to generalize, but I think that's like a universal truth.
The French,
if you will make
the French famously,
the Parisians famously.
Yeah, exactly.
The rest of France is actually very kind when you make an effort and you walk in and you say bonjour
all right, good
or
point.
whatever. But it's the Parisians. I think that generally speaking, and this was again at a time when you did not have as many people, white women from Minnesota speaking Chinese. It was a pretty small group. So when we went places, people were very surprised that we could even make an effort and that we did. And it was usually well regarded.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
That must have been
well received, I guess.
A thrill for people to hear that.
It was, I look back at it now and I'm like, that must have been the craziest thing to see this group of kids getting off a bus and like singing Chinese songs.
And this was the 2-week trip or?
Yeah.
Just spectacular. White Women from Minnesota, by the way, good band name.
Funny enough, when I went to college and went overseas to China, I booked my study abroad and then all of a sudden learned that there would be 2 other friends from my high school in Minnesota who would be on the same program at the same time. So we were the white women from Minnesota who traveled all over China together. It was like being in a band.
I love that. Yeah. And what was the teacher's name in high school again?
Oh, Margaret Wong.
Margaret Wong. Shout out.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're sort of like meeting up with these people later on who had her, presumably for Mandarin
we all
studies
did.
at the high school. And what kind of high school was it?
This was, and still is, it's a college preparatory school, pre-K through 12, in a suburb of Minneapolis. It's an Episcopal school, but it's been around, I don't remember how many years, but a long time.
I didn't know they had Episcopals up there in Minnesota.
Right? I know.
I thought they were
only
all
Lutherans.
all Lutherans. Sure, yeah, you betcha.
I'm so glad you know that.
Yeah, well, my people came from Sweden, and they're like, we're going to move to like Minnesota. I'm like, what? Things are so nice in like South Carolina. Why?
Right. Why would you go back to such a white, flat,
They
cold place?
knew how to
because it was
farm.
familiar.
Yeah. Huh. And so were your folks still there?
No, there is actually nobody left there.
Nobody.
No, I left when I went to college, and both my parents sort of said, whew, thank God and Greyhound, she's gone. Now we can move.
Thank God in Greyhound.
Yeah, like we're out.
I never heard that.
And so my mother moved to Alexandria, Virginia at the time, and my dad moved to Oregon. So that was it. I still go back. I still have some friends who are family, but
Friends who are family in
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. Yeah, it's cold.
Oh, you betcha.
Oh, sure. It's really cold. I used to go there in business.
I love that you were traveling there for business and seeing it.
I worked on General Mills, and I was a smoker at the time. They're like, no smoking. They were one of the first places in the whole country, probably the whole world, say, no smoking. We're not going to let you smoke in our buildings.
Which is funny because, boy, when I was growing up, there was smoking everywhere.
We had to go outside. And when it's February and it's minus 20,
That's a real incentive to quit.
and and it worked. I did quit like 25 years later.
So, if you'd been in Minnesota, it would have taken you less time.
Quite possibly. So you get out of college at Tufts, and where'd you go next?
I went to New York City,
Okay.
the place where dreams are made.
And you went there to work at the China Society?
I went there to work at Asia Society.
Asia Society.
They called me and offered me a job, I don't know, probably on like a Thursday, and said, can you start Monday? And I was living in Boston and said, yeah, sure.
And you'd interviewed there? How had you found out that it was a place to go? I mean, I guess there's probably not a lot of places to use
one of my aunts knew I was looking for a job and said, oh, there's this museum that I'm a member of, and I just saw, this is back, when people put like job listings in the newspaper, and said I saw this ad in the New York Times for a position there, I think in their performing arts department, and it's perfect for you, right? It combines everything. You need to go check it out. And that was not the job that I got, but she was right. It was a great place to go look, and I didn't know anything about it. So
And it was perfect for you because you were involved in the performing arts also?
I was. I have a long and somewhat glorious, occasionally glorious career in theater.
Oh.
And I have a double degree. It's from Tufts. One degree was drama.
One degree was drama, and the other was Mandarin?
Asian
studies. I see. And did you get like then a minor in the language?
I think I probably had enough credits to do that if I wanted to, but there must have been some reason why I couldn't do that.
And so I'm guessing at Tufts and college there was lots of theater.
Yes.
I mean, that was probably the
lot.
main kind of acting.
Yeah.
And do you do any of that now?
I am still involved in theater. I am on the board of a really fantastic theater company in the city called Page 73. It is our 25th anniversary this year, so we've been around for a little while. And it is an incubator and launch pad for early career playwrights.
Oh, wow.
So we take people who have never had a New York production. Among other things, we get submissions from thousands of people every year to produce their one New York premiere. And we have launched the careers of a lot of really successful people.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Well,
phenomenal.
that must be really fun.
It's really cool.
And do you write yourself?
No, I am not a playwright.
And do you sort of tread the boards anymore?
I don't. Although, look, I'm a parent, so half of parenting is fake it and figure it out later. So I feel like that's like acting.
Half of parent is acting.
Yeah, half of parenting is
I'm
acting.
so disappointed in you.
Right, the other half is like asking, why is this wet, or like. But
and how many kids do you have?
I have 3.
3.
Yes,
Nice.
3 magical creatures.
Oh, fabulous. I love them already.
Yeah.
And how old are they?
15, 13, and 9.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Teenagers are super easy.
Yes.
So you got
So
that
I've
going
noticed,
for you.
yeah.
And what are their genders?
I have 2 boys and a girl. And my youngest is actually more just like a wolf cub because she's sort of feral and has been basically raised by wolves.
That's the 9-year-old. So she's like 4th grade?
Yep. She is currently terrorizing the 4th grade.
Wow. And what are the kids into? Are any of them into theater or languages or
I think
Asian studies?
Yeah. I don't feel like Asian studies is necessarily going to be the route they go, although my daughter is asking me to get Japanese on Duolingo for her on my phone so that she can learn Japanese. So
Yes.
you never know. Probably because one of her friends is doing it. I think my oldest is probably going to continue to do sort of soundboard and lightboard for stuff in high school because he's into the tech side and it's interesting for him because it's pushing buttons. Like, what's not to love? Teenage boys and pushing buttons.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. My middle child is definitely the most interested in playing a musical instrument. So we'll see where he goes.
Huh. What fun.
Yeah.
I mean, are you, by and large, you enjoying the hell out of it?
I am.
You seem like the kind of person we really just met who would enjoy that.
I enjoy a lot of it. You know how much fun parenting is all the time.
You know, it's like moments of like horrendous exasperation, punctuated with like vast expanses of just joy and wonderment and head scratching and all of that.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Really accurate summary.
And I'm an empty nester now, and it sucks.
I can loan you some kids.
Oh, yeah.
I'll pick which one, though.
Loan me kid. Now, I understand that you brought a cocktail to, correct me if I'm wrong, which is the tradition here on Friday evening. What did you bring?
I have brought a Harvest Moon Mule.
Oh, sounds good.
Yeah.
Harvest Moon Mule.
Yes.
So what's in a Harvest Moon Mule?
A Harvest Moon Mule was adapted from a recipe given to me by a friend, and it is ginger beer, just like a different type of mule we've all heard of, and lime juice, and the thing that gives it and some local apple cider. Okay. And the thing that gives it its unique color is the homemade beetroot syrup. Oh. And I know that doesn't sound like it belongs in a cocktail.
No, it doesn't.
But it gives it a beautiful color. And they are very local, very farm to table.
Well, can you hook us up with some Harvest Moon mules? Right? Are they already mixed up? Oh, they are. Look, you got a little jam jar of Bon Maman.
If you have more ice, we can top them up.
Yeah, I think we do have ice. Just bear with us 1 second while our station owner. I think we're going to share these with everybody. Yeah. Oh, good. Wow. Thanks, Braden. Look at them. Wow, that's a big, big drink.
Well, don't worry, Norm. There's more where that came from.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. I was worrying already because it looks like it's only sort of like 9 ounces of alcohol.
But yeah, a few years ago, my daughter said she was really excited about beets and she wanted to eat them and she thought they were so delicious. And so, of course, I said, oh, we'll plant them in the garden and grow our own. And then like kids do, once they say they like something, the next day they don't like it anymore. Right. And yet now I had an entire raised bed full of beets. So I needed to find something to do with them. And the recipe came across my desk. And
when life hands you beets, make beet syrup.
Make beet syrup.
Wow. I would love to taste the beet syrup at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matt's coming back.
I mean, I think most people say that beets kind of taste like dirt. But
I love beets. And when I was a kid, we had canned beets because, everything, if it came in a can, was like the best.
Well, and also we were in the Midwest and all vegetables came in cans, which is weird since that's sort of the agricultural part of America.
And so I didn't like beets at all. I moved to New York City and went to a restaurant and they served beets. I was like, ugh. And I tried them. I'm like, oh my God, these are amazing.
I had the same experience with Brussels sprouts. When we were growing up, the school I went to would boil them to within an inch of their lives, possibly beyond that point. Yeah. And then serve it to you as this kind of steaming lump. And then I went to somewhere where they had, roasted the Brussels sprouts with bacon, and it was like a revelation. Right, and maple syrup and cayenne pepper and all that good stuff. All right, well, here we each have a drink. Braden, cheers. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for having me.
Jen and Matt, the station runners, thank you so much for everything. Huh.
I will tell you, I put extra ginger syrup in it because it's that time of year where the germs are all around us, and I feel like that'll kill everything that ails you.
Is that what ginger does?
I don't know. I feel like it has a lot of medicinal purposes. Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So does the vodka in here.
Also, the vodka I did choose is from Minnesota. Just
well, thank you for the drink that's really looking after our health.
Yeah, it's health in a glass.
So you're at the Asia Society for how many years? 4 years?
I think it was about 4.
Uh-huh. And how did you decide to leave?
Well, that's an interesting question. It was definitely one of the most incredible jobs to have in my early 20s. I traveled the world. I met unbelievable people. I met heads of countries. I met CEOs. I went to all kinds of incredible places.
What was your title there?
I held several different jobs while I was there, but they were all in sort of the business and corporate programs. So we would go do conferences in India or a conference in the Philippines or wherever, and we would meet all kinds of, really interesting people that I would never have met sitting in New York in another job. And so that was fantastic. But unfortunately, the Asia Society is a nonprofit. And, the thing about living in New York City and working at a nonprofit is that it's very hard to pay the rent. Mm-hmm. And my side hustle was theater, so that doesn't pay the rent either. So I left to go into marketing and hopefully do some work with an agency that was hoping to open an office in Hong Kong. And then I met my now husband on a blind date. And a few months later...
In Hong Kong?
No, in New York.
Okay.
I just started at my new job, and I went out with him. And shortly thereafter, he got transferred to Tokyo. So
wow,
that was the end of my working in New York for a while.
And so you spoke Mandarin. Mm-hmm. Did any of that help you to learn Japanese?
A little bit. They are very different. They do, however, share some written characters, but they're not always used for the same thing. So you might see a character you recognize and think, oh, I know what that is, and then realize actually in Japanese it has a completely different meaning. I think the thing that helped me was that I knew how to think differently. So it wasn't overwhelming to have a whole new grammar structure and language coming at me. And I had already lived in Japan once as an exchange student for a summer. So it wasn't the first time I'd been there, but it was a very different experience.
And so you were living in Tokyo, I'm guessing.
We were living in Tokyo, yeah.
And what was your husband's job that took him there?
He was working for a French bank in fixed income.
Uh-huh. Fixed income.
Yeah, I'm private equity. All these big terms people throw around. But suffice it to say, he worked in a French bank and was then sent to their Tokyo office.
And were you working somewhere over there at the same time?
I was not. I did not, in fact, have a work visa.
Oh. So you had all day, every day to tool around Tokyo
Japanese.
or learn Japanese.
Learn Tokyo.
And where did you...
And travel. Because I had to leave the country. I was on a tourist visa. So I probably shouldn't be saying this on the radio.
Why? Are they going to come after you?
I don't know. I hope not.
With Japanese.
Be a real shame.
Yeah. Huh. So you had to leave the country every 6 months or something?
90 days.
90 days?
Yeah, tourist visa is 90 days there.
Wow.
Or at least at the time it was.
And when you left and came back and left and came back, left and came back, did that raise any eyebrows at immigration?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they try to trip you up. But I didn't really have much to hide. I was like, I'm just here because I'm with my fiance and,
Right. And I'm
working. I'm just visiting, which is really what I was doing.
Right. And you fuckers make me leave in every 3 months. That's the problem. It's not me, Braden Rhetts. I'm like beyond reproach.
But it did give me the opportunity to go to a lot of interesting places because
Japan
is in the middle of nowhere. It's not really near anything.
Okay.
I mean, the nearest flight is, I think, either Korea or Guam.
So were you
that's multiple hours.
Traveling by yourself a lot?
A lot, yeah.
And where were some of the coolest places you went?
I think the coolest place that I went was Bhutan. And that was Bhutan, before they had like the Amman resorts and things like that. It was pretty rustic.
But did you have, they used to be, or maybe still are, famously difficult to get into. You had to jump through all kinds of hoops just to get a tourist visa to Bhutan.
Yep. I went with a group of women. I think there were 13 of us maybe, and it was a planned group trip, and we had all of our visas and everything else. And when I look back at that trip now, I can't believe some of the things we did.
Such as?
Such as two of my friends that I went with were pregnant with their first children. I think one was like 6 months pregnant and one was 3 months pregnant. And we were trekking around Bhutan. And they were sick as dogs and like living off the ginger ale that they'd brought and the peanut butter bars in their bags.
Huh.
Yeah. It's incredible.
I've seen pictures. It looks really breathtaking.
It was stunning. It was really, really beautiful.
And would you ever go back there?
I would love to go back. I think it's always hard to go back because in your mind, you remember it a certain way, and when you get there now, it looks completely different. I mean, that's my experience with China. I can't recognize my old neighborhood in Beijing because everything changes so much. So I think Bhutan has probably changed a lot less, but it would be interesting to go.
But you mentioned resorts, like they're getting touristified.
They have definitely upgraded their tourist offerings.
And where else did you travel to from Tokyo?
I think I went to Cambodia. I went to Thailand. Went to Australia.
Wow. New Zealand? New Zealand?
No, Australia was just for a weekend
Philippines.
because to see my husband's family who lives there. Because you can go to Sydney for the weekend when you live in Tokyo.
Is he Australian?
He is not, but his family diaspora is something else. They have his family's from Chile, and they are now spread across Chile, Australia, Switzerland, the United States, and I know I'm missing one. Because we just had a family wedding.
You're going to hear
and we
about
had
it when you
people
get
from
home.
4 continents all converging for a family wedding.
So he's one of 4.
No, he's one of 2.
Oh.
But his dad and his uncles
Gotcha.
all sort of spread out and started families in different places.
Wow.
So his dad was the one that came here.
And do you still travel? Do you miss that?
I do love traveling.
Hard
I
with
really
kids.
do. It's hard with kids, but I also, and it's expensive because you have to, take all of you. I really want them to see the world. I want them to see places that are different lifestyles, eat crazy different foods, all of the things.
Right.
And COVID really, threw a wrench in that. We sat here. And so now I'm sort of thinking, where can I take them? What can I do with them in the time that I have with all 3 still at home that's going to be memorable and it's going to open their eyes to the world?
Right.
So we're starting travel again, but it's...
Mystic Seaport. So did you go to places that you think about now? It's like, I would never go there again. I wouldn't go there now. Wouldn't want my kids to go there.
Well, sure. There's places that I went that wouldn't be great to go with kids. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like going to Indonesia when there was martial rule in the streets and tanks, probably not a great choice with kids.
Right. So you wouldn't go back there yourself either.
I would love to go back to Indonesia. There's some fantastic parts of it, but maybe not during a military coup or something.
Probably
it's not great for spring break with kids.
Choice.
Yeah.
Hey, this drink is delicious, by the way. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So have you traveled with the kids?
Absolutely, yeah. I did a lot of that when they were babies. I was the one who always had a baby strapped to my back and a car seat and a stroller and was jetting somewhere.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure now that I look back on it and I see my pictures of myself schlepping all of this stuff through the airport and kids, I'm like, I don't know how I did that.
And your husband, was he a good Sherpa?
He's a very good Sherpa, yeah. He's also a really good packer of, like satellite packing the back of a car when you have to fit all the stuff in.
Uh-huh. That's funny.
That's a superpower.
Yeah, well, it seems to be something that men sort of take pride in doing, whether they're any good at it or not. I don't know.
Well, it's an interesting point.
Yeah.
He is, however, very good at that.
And he enjoys traveling?
Absolutely. He's a kid who went to, I'm sure he'll correct me, I think he went to 11 schools before, or moved 11 times, I think it is, 11 times before starting college.
Wow.
So he grew up traveling all over.
And were they all in South America?
No, he grew up born in New York, grew up in both upstate Ithaca, Albany, and then Chile and Brazil and Mexico, and then Switzerland, and then came back to the United States for college.
Why? Yeah. What's his story? Can we get him in here to talk?
You can definitely get him in here. His dad is an NGO guy.
Okay.
Lifer. And so they traveled all over the place for work.
Right.
So he had a complete opposite upbringing than I did, where, I grew up in the Midwest in one place, went to the same school for many years, knew all the, same kids, grew up with them. And he was always the new kid at a school and having to make friends and learn new languages.
And so which of you is more outgoing now?
I'm 100% sure that your producer, Jen, can answer that.
Yeah.
That would be me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But, sometimes people who move around like that, you can get shy and reserved and wait for your moment, or you can learn to be really friendly and open the doors.
I think he's by nature a bit of an extroverted introvert, if you will.
Okay.
And I'm just an extroverted extrovert.
Uh-huh. And have you always been that way?
Yep. Yeah, you could literally ask anyone from any point in my life, and I think they'd all agree on that.
Extrovert.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes sense, sort of like with theater and stuff.
Yeah.
And so did you ever have a dream role in theater? Did you get to any jobs when you were in New York City?
In theater?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. I used to work with two friends from Minneapolis, and we had this, sort of somewhat unrealistic, or at least sort of naive, let's put on a show idea. And so we did. And so my friend Peter, who now lives in Beacon, is a playwright. And my friend Kent, who now lives in Los Angeles, is a director. And I was the producer. And we would just put on shows and make it work. And these tiny little off Broadway houses.
Right.
Yeah.
And such as?
Oh, gosh. I don't know if you ever remember the Producers Club, which was on 44th and 9th.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like above the diner that used to be there. I think the diner's still there.
Oh, yeah, maybe
the
not.
The Westway Diner?
Yeah, I don't know.
Something West Side Diner? Oh, shoot. I can't believe I forgot it. We used to put on shows there.
And did you live up around there when you were in the city?
No, I didn't. But that's the easiest place to find affordable, production space.
Uh-huh.
Or at least at the time it was. That's, I'm sure, changed.
So you'd put on these plays.
Yeah.
Write and produce and act in them.
Yep.
And people would come.
And we'd, put in the casting notice in backstage because, the internet was sort of in its infancy then.
Right.
And I still remember having people fax me their headshots and their resumes at work because we were on a time crunch, and so they had to fax them, which obviously is ridiculous because a headshot via fax machine is just not going to look good.
And how current is your headshot?
I don't even have one. I'm pretty sure in this day and age, I have some selfies that, would have to fulfill that role.
Yeah. I wonder if I don't think the headshot has gone out of fashion. I think people still use it.
Them, absolutely.
And did you ever have any interest in doing film?
I really thought about it and thought it would be really interesting and exciting, but I think I got a little sidetracked doing all this Asia stuff and then doing theater. And then being in New York, it was not the film capital of the world at the time, and it's still not. And so theater was much more accessible. It's more hands-on.
Right.
And
then
I moved overseas, and that sort of made doing film a little trickier.
Okay.
Theater is something that you can do anywhere.
Okay. And so when's the last time you staged a production?
Oh, that was a while ago. That was before I moved to Japan. So that was probably 99 or 2000.
Okay. So when you got back from Japan, how long were you in Japan?
We were in Japan for 2 years, and then we moved to England for about four and a half.
Uh-huh.
So, and then we came back here.
And he was still with this French bank.
French bank, yes.
Alliance Française or some kind of crap. And in London, the notes, my Cliff's notes here say, you went to the Instituto Cervantes.
I did. I did take Spanish lessons when I lived in London because I feel like everywhere I go, I need to learn a language. So when we lived in Japan, I studied Japanese. When we moved to England, I felt like I had a reasonable grasp on English and that maybe I should try something else. So that was when I decided to tackle Spanish and try to understand what my in-laws were saying behind my back. That was my motivation.
And how'd that work? Can you understand them better?
I definitely can understand them better. They don't speak Spanish around me. Well, and my mother-in-law has passed away now. But I did learn some very important things, though, in that Spanish is not the same the world round.
No.
And so I would be in London and I'd go to my lessons and I'd call up my mother-in-law afterwards and say, I just had my Spanish class and this is what I learned today. And most times she'd be like, that's great. That's marvelous. And then occasionally she would say, don't ever say that again. I said, why? She said, in Latin America, you never say that.
Wow.
Because that's basically wildly offensive. What you've just said is wildly offensive
Spanish
in Latin
from
America.
Spain, like your Catalan Spanish or whatever.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that was an introduction to Spanish for me.
And so you just couldn't stop sort of like being defiant against your mom. Did you ever think about studying French?
I think I probably should.
Mandarin,
I think I should go back
Japanese,
to French.
Spanish. Mm-hmm. And is she still around, your mom?
No, my mom, well, yes and no. My mom is around, but my mother is very, very sick with very serious Alzheimer's.
Okay.
So she does not speak at all anymore.
Oof, I'm so sorry to hear that.
I sort of think the French might have been the last language part to go. I think it was so deeply embedded that
Wow.
that made sense to her for a very long time.
And why was that so embedded in her, more so than English, I'm guessing?
I don't know.
Right.
I think if you asked anyone who was my mom's student, they will tell you that, her French was so strong it would beat most native speakers. So
Right.
perhaps that's why she really committed.
Right. So part of your thing said Alzheimer's warrior or something
Yeah,
like
it
that.
makes it sound like I'm like doing the Viking sword out there fighting it. Unfortunately, I can't fix it. I can't kill it. I can't solve it, but I can definitely keep bringing awareness. I can try to raise money for research, and I can
Right.
just try to mostly just open people's eyes and educate them about Alzheimer's, because I think it's so pervasive. There are so many people suffering from Alzheimer's and dementias, and we don't understand it. And most people are sort of maybe 1 degree removed from it, like, oh, it was my grandparent, and now we, at least those of us in this room, are getting to the age where it's our parents and or our friends and our peers and us. And it's scary, and there is no cure yet.
Oof.
Yeah, it's a doozy.
So you say it's scary. Are you afraid that it's going to be genetic? It's going to come down to you?
I think you can't not fear that on some level.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to let my life be defined by that, obviously.
No.
But my mother definitely had very early onset. There's more than 6 million Americans living with Alzheimer's, and at least 200,000 are early onset, which they define as like 65 or around 65. And my mom was younger than that when it started.
Oof.
Yeah,
Well, sorry to hear that.
me too. It stinks.
Yeah, it stinks. And it's one of those degenerative things like
Yeah.
dementia and stuff, ALS.
Yeah, and I think dementia is like an umbrella. There are lots of different kinds of dementias, and Alzheimer's is the most common. So a lot of people use those phrases
I'm
interchangeably.
not sure I knew that.
Yeah. So there's multiple forms of dementia, like
Right.
Lewy body dementia or temporal frontal lobe dementia, Creutzfeldt-Jakob.
Right.
All of those are types of dementias. But then Alzheimer's is one, and it's the most common. It's like 60 to 80% of dementias are Alzheimer's.
Oh,
I should
interesting.
say I am not a doctor, so I just play one on the radio.
Yeah.
So go to a more trusted source for actual stats.
Right. Yeah, my dad had the Lewy body dementia.
Brutal.
And it was the blessing really was that, you knew what was going to happen. And he was taken away from us little by little, slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we got to say goodbye to him
Yeah.
a lot. And in retrospect, that was really nice.
I think that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
A good way to look at a really crappy situation.
Ugh. And how many million Americans did you say?
I believe it is now about 6 million
Right.
living with Alzheimer's. And then you think about how many people are doing the caregiving.
Right.
Because I believe November is like National Caregiver Month. And so it does make you focus on the amount of unpaid
Oh, yeah.
care and I think it's something like 11 million Americans providing unpaid care
Right.
for Alzheimer's patients.
Egads.
It's a lot.
Right.
No, it's a huge health issue.
It's a huge sort of dollar value of that work, too.
Yeah. Well, and the numbers are not going down.
And where is she? She's down in Virginia?
She's now in Connecticut.
Oh, good. So she's closer.
Yeah. Yep. So I moved her to Connecticut, and so we could sort of be, close enough.
And is there a good care facility there for?
Yeah. Yep. There's several care facilities, and the one she's in, she's been there now for 13 years.
Right. All right. Well, let's switch to a sunnier topic.
Right.
You said earlier before we went on air that you'd love to sing an Ethel Merman song for
That's
us.
funny. I did not, in fact, say that.
Pretty
Norm.
sure. Can we have a show of hands here for everybody
That's a
who
no.
heard her say? The three of us remember you saying that.
I think that's the alcohol talking.
No. But do you do an Ethel Merman sort of impersonation?
I don't have an Ethel Merman impersonation.
Well, you could
but
do the
now
note.
I'm thinking perhaps like maybe next year for your birthday, I'll get that organized.
Well, that'd be really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you very
It's
much.
the gift that keeps on giving.
All right, then what song are you going to sing?
I wasn't planning on singing any song, but if you would like to sing, Norm, I am here for it.
Well, the fans are going to be pretty disappointed. People tuned in.
like
I
all
promised.
3 people listening.
I promised. I'm sure we have 4 or 5. Thank you very much. So when you were, in the theater, were you singing and dancing and acting?
I did lots of musicals in high school and things like that. I quickly discovered when I got to college that everybody wants to be an actor, but most people don't get paid to do that.
Right.
Normally, you have to pay your rent somehow, and those jobs are set construction, sewing costumes, hanging lights, painting sets.
Producing.
Yeah. So that's what I started doing.
Okay.
And it was fantastic. It was a really great hands-on education.
Uh-huh. Huh. Do you think about getting back into it here? I mean, I know your hands are full with the kids, but...
Well, I think that could be a lot of fun. I don't know what resources are around here that I might...
Rhinebeck Playhouse has open auditions like once a month or so for various things.
This could be very dangerous information in the wrong hands.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, there's all kinds of theater companies. There's one down there in Wappingers.
I just went to the one in Wappingers a few weeks ago, actually. The Wappinger Country Players. Is that it?
County Players.
County Players.
Yeah. What'd you see?
I saw... what is the name of that show? Calendar Girls.
And how was it?
It was fantastic. It was great to see a local community production because it's the first one I've seen around here in a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like we need to get over to the Rhinebeck Performing Arts Center and see some of the shows that are coming up there.
Yeah. I just missed it. The Iceman Cometh just closed.
Well, and I still go to New York to see all the shows that Page 73 does, and a lot of our alumni have shows going on at other theaters as well, so we go for those. So
nice. Page 73.
Exciting.
That sounds like a really beautiful company. How involved are you in their stuff, Page 73?
Well, I'm on the board, so my job... I have a lot of responsibilities, but we divide them amongst the board. And I think one of the things that I spend more time doing is just, as we say, getting butts in seats.
Right.
So spreading the word, letting people know that this is a thing, this is happening, because there's a lot of competition for eyeballs in New York City.
Right. And so what are the strategies to get butts in seats?
I think a lot of that is just networking and letting people know, because everyone has heard of Wicked and everyone's heard of The Lion King.
Right.
And when people come to town, they're going to go see, quote, a Broadway show. But there's lots of other shows happening that are off Broadway that can be new and exciting, and they're not a revival of something else. And that's not necessarily something that people know about. So that's exciting for us to be able to promote that and launch new work.
And I'm guessing that the new work is in various theaters around.
Right. We don't own
town.
our own real estate.
Smart. Really, really
Well,
good choice.
that means we can put the money into helping artists.
Right.
We're not spending it on on owning a theater year round.
And so putting butts in seats, and how many seats does a typical theater for a typical production
That
have?
really depends on what theater you're in. Sometimes we do things at Playwrights Horizons. Sometimes we do things at a tiny little...
How many seats is that?
It depends which theater you're in.
Playwrights
But if it's
Horizon.
an off Broadway show... I'm trying to remember when we did Strange Loop there, how many seats we had. I don't remember, Norm.
But is it like 400 or 2,000?
No, it's not 2,000. I mean, you're talking like a couple hundred.
Right. Huh.
And there
So
are...
it's a typical production for y'all. Is a few hundred.
Yep. And then usually a run will be maybe 3 weeks.
Right.
Unless it gets extended. So when we did A Strange Loop off Broadway and premiered that then got extended for an extra 3 weeks.
Uh-huh. So
And then went to Broadway and won the Pulitzer and the Tony. So sometimes dreams come true.
That's my next question. I was going to ask about a success story in
I
there,
feel like
Page
that's the one
73.
that's most current and that most people would recognize.
And what was it called?
A Strange Loop.
A Strange Loop.
Yep.
I did
So-
not recognize that.
Oh, well, now you're going to go and look up the
But I'm
soundtrack on
I'm
Spotify.
out of the loop. Yeah, it's a good soundtrack.
It's fantastic.
Do you sing along?
I sing along in the car when my kids aren't in the car.
Because if you sing when the kids are in the car, what happens?
I think the lyrics on that show, which they've heard me sing, are just not quite appropriate for my fourth grader.
I see.
So.
And in what way? Are they swearing? Are they talking about sex or
all of the above.
religion? Or
All of the above. All of the above. It's a show about a queer black man writing a musical about a queer black man writing a musical. It's very meta. And navigating life. And it's fantastic. It was a really phenomenal production. But yeah, the soundtrack isn't As I learned, it's not great to have that blasting out your car windows when you go to CLS for pickup.
Right. And so it came across your desk. It was a submission to page 73.
We started working with Michael, the playwright, many, many, many years ago. I mean, like, it went through workshops. It went through all kinds of things. And then after several years of working on it, it became the show that was selected to be produced.
Do you select one per year?
We normally do one per year. There have been a couple years where we've done two.
Right.
It really depends. And so that was how that started. And that then got launched off Broadway. I'm trying to remember, was it 2019? Just before COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just before COVID. And when COVID hit, were you all living in the city?
We were living in the city, yes.
And did you make the decision, like, we should not be confined to our little apartment here?
I don't think any apartment is big enough. I don't care what the apartment is. No apartment is big enough to be there 24/7 with 3 kids and everybody trying to do Zoom school and run around and all the things. And it's stressful knowing that, you know, your kid has to like go out in the hallway to get on the elevator to go to the crowded park. You know, it was stressful. So we already had a weekend house here. We'd had it for many years. We've actually been here since 99
Nice.
as weekenders. And so we came up here, and I remember my husband saying, it'll just be a few weeks. And we've been here ever since.
Wow. And so do you still have the place in the city?
We do still have the place in the city.
So does he go down and sort of work 3 or 4 days a week on
Well,
site?
not 3 or 4 days, no. He'll go maybe once a week, once every other week for a day or two.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah. And so we're trying to figure out a little commuting for both of us.
A little commuting for both of you?
Yeah, because it's nice to get away and go to the city.
Sure. Well, it's a shock when all of a sudden, you know, a married couple spending all their time under the same roof.
Were you at my house too, Norm? You saw that?
I wasn't, but I think I saw it in an episode of Maury.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot for everybody. It's a lot for the kids where you're like, yeah, you can't go outside. You can't play with anybody. You know, you're stuck.
Egans. And so do you all still take lots of precautions? Who's wearing a mask when they go out? Anybody?
If I'm in the city, I'm a bit more cautious than I am here.
Right.
Because just getting on the subway in the city, you're dealing with millions of people.
But you don't see too many people wearing masks.
I have not for the last few months. But I think that's going to change now that it's cold and flu season.
Right. Cold
I really do.
And flu and coronavirus season.
Exactly.
Yeesh.
I mean, that's what people have done in Japan for years, is when you're sick, you wear a mask so that you don't infect other people. This has been common practice for decades.
Yeah, you think that could sort of catch on here in the
Yeah,
U.S.?
it doesn't look likely.
No, it's a whole different mindset.
Yeah. But it would be nice if we did that.
It would be. So that was a pleasant surprise living in Japan to see people going out, taking precautions to not infect other strangers.
And it's not unusual to see someone wearing a mask.
To not infect strangers.
Like, for years it hasn't been.
But here in the U.S., it's like, fuck you, stranger. I'm not wearing a mask. We're going to wear it down, sort of not over my nose or whatever. Mm-hmm. What other... I mean, that's just kind and, you know, good community.
But I think that being here during COVID, yes, everyone was taking precautions, but it was the best thing that could have happened to my kids. And I told them this at the time. I said, you know, COVID's going to be the best thing that ever happened to you. And they looked at me like I was nuts.
In what way?
But I mean, to be fair, they always look at me like I'm nuts. Because it gave them a whole different lifestyle. You know, they went from being in the city and having this very frenetic life there to overnight moving here. And all of a sudden they have room to run around. They are on all these sports teams. They made new friends.
And did you finish out the school year, the spring 2020 semester in the city and then move up?
They didn't go to school in the city because it was all online. Nobody went back to school.
Oh.
So that spring.
Made it pretty easy.
Yeah. So easy except for the fact that our internet over on our side of Rhinebeck was like dial-up, like a hamster on a wheel.
Yeah.
And so all 5 of us could not be online at the same time.
That's tough.
Yeah. So that there were some days where we were parked in the back, like parked our pickup truck in the parking lot of the Star Library, and we're kind of like tailgating, but for internet access.
Glomming onto their internet. There were probably lots of other people there doing the same thing.
I mean, there were days where it was a little bit of a party.
Right.
Yeah.
And you saw the same people every day.
Yeah, you know that when your kid's there, like with his saxophone, doing his virtual Zoom saxophone lesson from the back of a pickup truck, you've reached a whole new level.
Nice. And do the kids play any instruments?
My middle child plays the saxophone, and my daughter just started the clarinet. Yeah.
Okay, so back to Tokyo.
That sounds like the name of an album by the band.
Yeah.
By some band.
Yeah, by the group of white girls. What was that band name? You were an independent marketing consultant.
I'm
there.
pretty much still an independent marketing consultant.
What does that mean?
That means that, when someone needs to get the word out about something, I'm always the one saying, well, have you thought about this? Have we thought about that?
Sounds like a PR agent, kind of.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of overlap between those two things. And
had you done that at Digitas?
That was a digital marketing agency, yes. So I was doing digital marketing there.
Okay. So who do you do independent marketing consultation for now?
At the moment, my kids. Are you kidding me?
Kids. Jimmy's having a birthday party. Yeah. Come on down.
Well, and then there's all of the Rhinebeck kind of activities. Like I'll plug one for you, Norm. So it's Saturday, tomorrow, the 4th of November, is the Rhinebeck Science Foundation Discovery Festival.
Oh.
So everyone should come to that. I believe it's from 10 to 2 over at the middle school and high school.
Nice.
There you go. I just marketed that for you.
Sounds good.
And it's fantastic, and it's free.
I think half of the listeners are going to show up.
That would be fantastic, because there's, I think, 30-some presenters that are doing all of these cool STEAM activities.
But it's pointed at kids, really, right?
Absolutely, like elementary and middle school. And then we've got a bunch of high school kids who are volunteering there.
Nice. And who's putting it on?
That would be the Rhinebeck Science Foundation.
Huh. I think I've heard of them.
Yeah, I hope you have.
Yeah. And so do you work with RSF?
I'm just volunteering. Just like I volunteered last weekend at the school to do the haunted house and all of the Halloween celebrations. And then volunteered before that to do Sinterklaas stuff. So there's a lot of pretty awesome things here that you can get involved in. And I'm still learning about them.
And what Sinterklaas stuff are you going to do this year?
I just did the Love It or Swap It thing with Allison.
Oh, fun.
So I volunteered for that. Jen was there too.
Now, was Allison sort of like spearheading Sinterklaas this year?
I'm not really sure. Is she?
She's shadowing.
She with an eye towards taking over the reins is what I heard.
I think you just marketed that job position for her.
Is that what it's called? I didn't even know that was the verb. Marketing the
It's like you're her agent.
Yeah, well, I get 10%, and that's worth it. All right. Before we went on air, we were talking about Top Condiment, and I wanted to circle back around to that because you and our station owner here, Matt, were in a heated discussion about
locked in a fierce debate.
Mayonnaise. What are your feelings about mayonnaise?
Okay, I know that this is treasonous to say as someone who grew up in the Midwest, but I really don't like mayonnaise.
Me neither. It's gross.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's because we were exposed to so much mayonnaise growing up. Like Matty, mayonnaise like you can't imagine in places that it shouldn't be. I'll send you some recipes like from
their
cookbooks.
brands.
Matt, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
You're profoundly wrong.
So I am going to make you some of these Midwestern like 1970s and 80s recipes that featured mayonnaise.
Give us
and
some
you
examples.
Like ring around the tuna.
What does that mean?
Oh, just you wait.
But tuna and mayonnaise go together.
But do they really go with Jell-O? Asking for a friend?
That's tough. I do like
Aspic for a
gelatinized
friend.
proteins.
Oh, I mean, the things is there's a lot of combining Jell-O and mayonnaise in the Midwest at that time.
Yeah.
And really,
Does it
that's
include
wrong.
green olives?
Occasionally, it does include the
Excellent.
ones with the pimento in the middle, obviously.
Has to.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Norm, thank you. The term is ugh.
Yeah. So did your mom or dad pack you a lunch when you went to school, or did the school have like hot lunches?
The school that I started in second grade and then continued on through, they served lunch. So you were not allowed to bring your own. But since neither of my parents is actually from the Midwest, there was not this forced mayonnaise and Jell-O consumption.
Right.
So I got out unscathed.
Well, you went over to friends' houses
Yeah,
occasionally for like bologna sandwich with
Or
like
Knox blocks. I don't know if anyone remembers those. The Jell-O, like this,
Yeah.
yeah.
Knox was the gelatin, the little box.
Shudder.
And are there any foods from your youth that you like to revisit and share with your kids?
Oh, I love doing that.
Such
I
as?
love this. Okay, so my friend, one of my absolute best friends, still lives in Minneapolis, Christina Baker, and she and I during COVID planned a sort of summer camp for our two families because we just had to get out of here and do something. So we drove out to Minnesota. We rented a cabin on a lake in northern Minnesota. Our two families hung out, and we had a tater tot hot dish cook-off. Tater tot hot dish. No, it's not hot dish. It's hat dish because it's Minnesota.
Hat.
And it's what hot dish in Minnesota is what you call casserole in other places. You know, it's like hot and in a casserole dish, and it's got
Right.
whatever was in the refrigerator, whatever
Turkey's onion rings sprinkled on top.
or like the frozen corn or whatever.
Yeah.
But if it's got the tater tots on the top to give it that nice golden crust, then you're really next level.
That's
So we had a
fancy
tater
stuff.
tot hot dish cook-off between my best friend from Minnesota and my husband who'd never had it before, and it was hysterical. So my kids have been exposed to that, and it was fantastic.
They loved it.
They did.
The tater tot
I mean, what's
hot-
not to like? It's
hot
tater
dish.
tots
Yeah.
and like
Tater tots
ground
are the
beef
best.
and stuff.
Yeah. And Rhinebeck Bagels used to make tater tots. I don't know if they still do. They were amazing. The best
Do they
tater
put
tots
them on the bagel?
on the bagel.
Oh, because they could do like a tater
Yum.
tot hot dish on a bagel.
If they
It
don't,
could be very like a Midwest special.
yeah,
I just gave away a great idea.
yeah, you should keep that.
Just don't put mayonnaise on it.
Yeah, feed mayonnaise to tuna fish.
And I think the other thing I've tried to get my kids to understand about the Midwest is Cool Whip.
Oh yeah.
Cool Whip was a staple of our diet as kids.
Oh yeah.
And my friends and I, you eat it straight from the container, preferably with your finger.
With a big spoon.
Yeah. And then obviously, I'm sure, I don't know if you had this in Ohio growing up, but that empty Cool Whip container, you wash it out and then that's your Tupperware.
Oh, man.
And so when someone comes over and you got to give them leftovers to take home, because you have to give them leftovers to take home.
Oh, yeah.
It goes in the Cool Whip container.
Yep.
And that's your good Tupperware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom had Cool Whip containers, but grandma had all that stuff. She had
yeah.
empty bread bags. She's like, I'll find something for this.
She was like the original, eco.
Grandma Rose.
Yeah.
Mendota, Illinois.
Oh, geez.
Oh yeah, you betcha.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was the middle of nowhere. But yeah, all that
But you
stuff.
save everything. You don't throw it out, It's that.
I'm a little bit
It's
of
a different
A
mentality.
little bit of a pack rat. And are you still a little bit of a pack rat?
Oh, I think if you asked my husband, he'd give you an answer.
Yeah.
I definitely have some pack rat tendencies for certain categories.
Okay.
So I can't get rid of shoes unless they're falling apart.
Huh.
I love shoes.
Did you bring any shoes to the swap meet for Sinterklaas?
I did. I did take shoes to that. And then
See?
Allison forced me to come home with shoes. So it was, it may not have been the most effective way of cleaning out the closet.
And was this a swap, or could you take stuff and not bring things home?
Technically, you do not have to bring things home. However, I will tell you that I got in my car to drive home the other day and I went, wait a second, what is this in my car? And I rolled down the window. I'm like, Allison, did you stick stuff in my car? So Allison had decided there were things that I needed to have and just put them in my car,
And,
even though I wasn't there.
Yeah. And when you brought them out of the car, was she right?
Oh, she's absolutely right.
Yeah. She's a fashion plate, that
Yes.
Allison. But
Yes.
so are you. One of the first times I saw you, you were was it a CLS open house? You were wearing the most interesting and fun.
Those are my, inspired by Allison pants, I think. I mean, I've had them
I
forever.
think I told you that night.
Yeah.
I said, this looks like something Allison would wear.
And when I put them on, I was like, oh, this is definitely an Allison
And you
vibe.
blushed and fanned
That's-
your face.
yes,
You said,
as you do.
no, it's nothing.
But I've had those forever because I can't get rid of them.
Yeah.
Because you never know when you're going to need them.
Yeah. So how
Could be
many
an open
pairs
house.
of shoes do you reckon you have?
I might have to plead the fifth.
Okay.
It may not be good to let that information out.
Uh-huh. And is it a
It
point?
is in excess of 100.
Is it a point of contention with the mister?
Yes.
Do you share a closet?
Not really.
Yeah, I think
No,
you
that's-
shouldn't.
No, it's best for everyone.
Right.
Like happy marriage is, separate sinks in the bathroom and separate closets.
Do you have separate sinks?
Oh, yeah.
Do the kids have separate sinks, or do they share
No,
one
no,
sink?
my kids all share rooms and yeah.
Well, that's good. They learn to cooperate.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, guess what, Braden Rhetts?
Guess what, Norm?
We're out of time. It's been an hour. And we're not going to do the outro of the Mary Tyler Moore Show theme song as we did the intro. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Coming
This was
not
delightful.
directly from Minneapolis, but from somewhere back then. And I hope you'll come back again in the future.
Oh, I would love to be a repeat offender.
Oh, good.
That sounds so fun.
And Braden, everybody, have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here.